Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. It's TalkTV. I'm Mike Graham and it is Friday night, of course, and this is your chance to watch us absolutely rip everybody to shreds because they've been absolute and utter idiots all the way through the week. We've got plankery galore going on, and I'm not even sure already who's going to win it because I'm the one that judges it right at the end. We've got a great panel though, apart from Dave Chawner, who's somehow sneaked in under the wire. Laura Dodsworth is here, Russell Quirk is here, Candice Holdsworth is here as well, and this is of course what they're all fighting for, the Plank of the Week. And let's start right away with my favourite starter, Laura Dodsworth. I could have said starter for 10 and it would have been like University Salad.
I'll just be your favourite starter, but I want to know what you're having for a main course after me, Mike.
Russell Quirk.
Anyway, so...
Yeah. Listen, that sort of talk is not required. It's only 7 o'clock at night, you know. We're not past the watershed.
I didn't start this. Anyway, I'm sorry. I have got a sombre one to start with, but he is a massive plank.
He is a plank.
Owen Jones. Yeah. And the reason I'm nominating him is that we were both at the Bearing Witness screening, which is the footage of Hamas's massacre on the 7th of October. They're just playing this footage to a selected number of politicians, journalists, and I'll be honest, I didn't really want to go, but the whole point is that you are bearing witness. And also then if people deny or diminish what happened, you know, you can put them straight. So I sat behind Owen Jones and I did wonder if he was going to do one of his classic hot takes. Yes. And he has. He put a video out this week on his YouTube channel. And
I'm just going to stop you for a second because there might be some people who don't know who Owen Jones is, right?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
He writes for The Guardian. He's a sort of left-wing polemicist, right? Let's just have a look at him explaining what he saw or what he thinks he saw, and then you tell us what you saw.
If there was torture too, there's no evidence given for it on camera. Now, if there was rape and sexual violence committed, we don't see this on the footage either. Now, a warning here for deeply distressing description, but a clip of an Israeli woman inspecting a badly burned woman's corpse to see if she was a relative. She had no underwear. This has been offered as evidence of rape, but that's not what you would consider conclusive evidence. We don't see children being killed.
Okay,
I mean, that's horrific, isn't it?
I wasn't going to describe
I think
anything.
he's
horrific.
He's horrific.
I actually find it really upsetting watching him say that because I was at the same screening. I sat behind him. Now, for me, it is incredible that somebody could watch that film and that their takeaways, they didn't see evidence of rape.
Yeah.
There were multiple women who were dead with deep green bruises. Right. And that particular one he's talking about, I wouldn't have mentioned it, but now you've shown the clip of him. He's talking about a woman who is naked on the lower body. Yeah. She's dead, she's burnt, and she's contorted like a mannequin. And his takeaway is we don't have evidence she was raped.
It's just bizarre.
She is dead, she is burnt, she's undressed. And I mean, the whole 45 minutes is like that. His whole video is like that, saying proof, proof, proof. The evidence of his eyes isn't enough.
No.
So here's my plank of the week because he went to see this screening of Bearing Witness and he comes out saying, no, this doesn't count. We need the evidence sent to us as independent journalists so we can verify it. I don't know how he thinks he can verify it.
But when the Hamas sort of propaganda unit says there's 14,000 people dead in the Gaza Strip, he buys that.
He believes that.
He doesn't ask for a piece of footage.
But what is his acknowledgement then in terms of the fact that he's watching dead people on screen? So, notwithstanding the fact that we're talking about what also happened to them in terms of how they became dead and what happened to them in terms of rape and decapitation and so on, what's his take on the fact that they are dead? I mean, how does he defend that even?
He doesn't deny they're dead. What he's saying is we don't know who killed them or when. We don't know that the women were raped. We've heard people are tortured, but we don't see it.
I mean, what's the difference?
I don't really know how much would be enough for him. I saw that film, and what I saw was barbaric evil committed against innocent people.
Horrible.
You come out of that and you're changed forever. That whole screening was silent. Everybody was silent. We walked out silent, and then he produces a film like that, and at the end he goes, "Oh, and subscribe to my channel."
Yeah.
And do you think he's done that for effect, or does he really believe?
Well, no,
he's
part of this. He's part of this movement where you cannot, in any way, shape, or form, be anything other than pro-Palestinian, and unfortunately, that also means even though he will condemn what happened, he is sympathetic to why they did it.
He says he's condemning it.
Yeah, no, I've seen him do it. No, I saw him do it. He was on with Piers Morgan, and he did condemn the actual day of October the 7th.
So you think
because he knew
it's ideology rather than just trying to grab viewer numbers?
No, he's
believes it.
He's playing to his crowd. That's what he's doing.
But it just goes way beyond healthy scepticism. Way beyond. It demands extraordinary proof as well.
It's inhuman,
every single thing must be documented. Well, we have loads of eyewitness accounts of women saying, I saw women being raped.
But also, it's not for him to say that, one, and there are still people being held hostage, two. You know, I mean, it's very irresponsible, it seems to me.
But isn't it funny that this is it's not funny at all, sorry, isn't it strange, odd, that this is from the same set of politically minded people that think now that Joan of Arc was a trans man, and that, you know, the Black Death of the 17th century was racist. I mean, they take that with no evidence whatsoever as gospel, but when it comes to something that Laura's just described, they're sceptical.
Yeah, this is when it gets ridiculous, because they take their kind of ludicrous nonsense and the way they behave on Twitter and bring it into the real world, and that is no
believe what they want to believe. They believe what they want to believe.
What I'll say is he obviously went into that screening unable to really believe the evidence of his eyes because he can't put his ideology down. He talks about his humanity and his objectivity, but he's not objective.
No.
He's objectifying the dead bodies.
Yeah.
What we saw was really horrendous, and your takeaway from it shouldn't be, I need more proof.
Yeah, no, exactly. It just shouldn't be. But the thing I can't believe is that he still writes a column for The Guardian, but then it is The Guardian.
Does this affect his career, do we think? I mean,
he'll probably get pay rise from The Guardian.
No, I think that a lot of people are questioning his judgment in doing this. I tell you what, I was not going to write about this screening because I think you have to be very careful to give the dead the dignity and respect the feelings of the bereaved, and perspective takes time. But because he wrote that, because he put out that video, I wrote an article this week on The Critic, because I had to counter it. Because the point of bearing witness is that if you hear somebody deny it or you diminish it, you can then speak up for the dead and for the bereaved.
Exactly.
He's a disgusting loon.
He is. Now let's go for your second, your first nominee.
I was going to ask Dave Chawner, as he's a man of the left, if hopefully he doesn't defend Owen Jones.
No, of course he won't.
Mike wants you to move on, Russ.
No, he wants you to move on. Yeah, he does want you to move on.
Well, let's move on to the Metropolitan Police again, I'm afraid.
I mean, they're in it every week now.
Regular
they're
feature.
the new Sadiq Khan of Plank of the Week.
Regular feature. Well, he's not far behind here.
I mean, to be fair, he won it last week.
Well, and given that Sadiq Khan is, of course, the Metropolitan Police Crime Commissioner.
Oh, here's the Plank of the Week police siren. Which sounds nothing like the real police siren.
So the Metropolitan Police, who, of course, are in special measures, have not exactly covered themselves in glory over recent months and years. You know, this is a police force that don't arrest anybody, don't convict anybody, that take the knee, that seem to think it's more important to dance the Macarena at the Notting Hill Carnival wearing rainbow helmets and so on, and can't arrest anybody, seemingly, particularly if they are shouting for jihad on the streets of London.
Right.
Unless you're a man that is provocatively having breakfast in the middle of West London during a protest.
Was he having black pudding or anything?
Yeah, well, look,
it could have been that. You know,
yes,
it could have been that. I'm not having that.
Maybe the breakfast was
white pudding.
The breakfast was offensive. You know, racist mushrooms. I don't know, nasty bacon.
Pork.
He can come up with a few things, I'm sure. Anyway, the man in question, of course, was Tommy Robinson. Now, I'm not an apologist for Tommy Robinson. I think,
although as Peter Hitchens prefers to call him, Stephen Yaxley Lennon,
which is
Tommy
his real
Robinson's
name.
not really his name.
Yes, so he was arrested for simply being in the vicinity of that protest. The police rounded on him, some 20 police officers.
There was an awful lot of them.
There was lots of them. They ended up pretty much dragging him out of the restaurant that he was in. His version of events, and from the video I've seen, which was taken as this was happening, he was sitting there minding his own business as a journalist, so he says, writing on behalf of someone.
I mean, he's not a journalist, is he? I mean,
but he was employed apparently on that day for the purposes of transcribing what was happening. Look, is he an antagonist? Yes, of course he is. Has he got a very questionable reputation? Yes. My point is, as someone that was not at that time causing trouble and was there in the middle of a public place during a public protest where many people were doing things that many of us would think were wrong in terms of carrying banners, shouting for jihad, calling for the genocide of the Jewish population and the removal of the Jewish state. He was effectively, by contrast, arrested by 20 police officers and tear gas, pepper spray, simply for being there under, I think it's a Section 35.
Well, they gave him a dispersal order, which I think they gave him while he was actually there. But let's have a look at Julie Hartley-Brewer's reaction to what happened and what she said.
He was arrested simply for joining the march. He left a cafe where he'd been having breakfast. He walked out into the street, and at that point, he was arrested. He was like pepper sprayed. He was marched. You can see if you're watching the footage on the TV screen, not just listening. He was a frog marched by a huge number of police officers. Should he have been arrested, given that there were people who are spouting horrific anti-Semitic comments on the streets at the pro-Palestinian marches every Saturday, who were not arrested? He hadn't broken any law that I'm aware of.
100%.
And I mean, there's no question. I, like many people, haven't got a lot of time for the guy, but they were completely over the top, and they shouldn't have done it, because all they did, in effect, was not only do something which they weren't doing to other sets of people who were actually committing more offences. But they've actually just given him and the people who support him more reason. But more reason to understand or to ask the question, why is he treated like this?
You can't, as a questionable police force, say on the one hand, someone like Tommy Robinson is likely to cause harassment, harm and distress to people around him, whether it's in the street, in that restaurant or whatever, and at the same time turn an absolute blind eye in this two-tier policing situation that we're in to all of the people that are causing the majority of the population, in my opinion, massive offence by the things they're saying about the Jewish population.
And also, hang on a second, because this was the Sunday march that you were on, and the reason that he was given was basically that the organisers of the march didn't want him there. Now, that's fair enough, they're allowed to say that, but I'm not sure about how the law then continues with that theme. Because he said, quite rightly, afterwards, what if I have a march and I said I want the BBC there? Are they going to then tell the BBC they can't be there? So I think they got it massively wrong, the police. I really do.
I think they did. I mean, first of all, I think he shouldn't have been arrested. I think you're getting into dangerous thoughts crime territory because they have no idea what he was intending to do when he left the cafe. Wait till he's broken a law. But I do think he shouldn't have been there because it was a day that was in protest against anti-Semitism.
But it's not breaking the law.
I think the other reason that they shouldn't have arrested him is they've given him what he wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's something about him which is a little bit narcissistic. He's made it about him.
Right.
And actually, he can't take away from what was a very positive and very well-attended protest, but that's what he was trying to do. The best thing to do would have been to completely ignore him. Nobody put a camera on him. Ignore him because nobody was there for him.
No,
they were
the
there
wider
for the
authoritarian point is we cannot have people that are arrested for going about their normal lawful business just because there's some interpretation of some obscure law that, frankly, I mean, if I'm walking home now, I could be dispersed.
Well, you've already had trouble with the train people.
I have indeed.
Train police.
4 people meeting me.
Has that all been resolved, by the way?
I've been to court.
Have you been found guilty?
Didn't go well.
Did you get found guilty?
I got found guilty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Of being on the... He was basically on a train.
Being on the wrong train.
With a different ticket to the one he should have had. And it ended up in court. I mean, madness. Absolute madness.
Long story. But
Anyway, well, we'll have to get you to talk about that another time. Candice, who's your first one?
So my first one does hurt me a little bit. It's Olivia Colman.
Yes.
Because I loved her in Peep Show. She was absolutely amazing. But
Chawner's spoken. Well done.
That's the first one I've spoken.
Welcome to the show.
It's good seeing him.
You frightened him at the beginning.
a comedy reference. She was brilliant in that. But now she's done a video with Richard Curtis, who also was a brilliant comedy writer.
He's gone mad, though, hasn't he?
And he's gone all woke. And it's just it's the lamest thing you've ever seen.
Right.
What was he saying?
Well, let's have a look at the ad, shall we?
People like you have pumped billions of your hard-earned pounds into our gas and oil businesses. The cash from your pensions has helped us dig, drill and destroy more of the planet than ever before. We've even managed to build a few little wind turbines to keep Greta and her chums happy. Cute. You see, every little drop from your precious nest egg adds up. So while the global temperature may go up a teensy-weensy degree or two, our profits are literally soaring.
I've got a blow like that on The World According to Mike Graham.
That's your take home. I love that.
Is it shared between studios?
No, it isn't. How ludicrous is that?
It's just so disappointing.
Is she supposed to be some evil oil baron or something?
It lacks all subtlety, all nuance. It's really cartoonish.
Do you think she was paid for it? I bet she was.
What's happened to them? What's happened to all these people?
Is it bad that she was paid for work?
Yes.
No, it's not.
She's taking a moral stand.
It's bad that people are paid for work.
Because she's making it because it's a moral stand.
The problem for me is I don't know what that was actually. What was it actually?
Yeah, I don't get that.
They're trying to get people to pension funds to divest.
Yeah, but who's behind the ad though? Who's actually?
So
paid
it's part of an activist group who are part of all like the sort of BDS movement, not to do with Israel, but they're trying to get people to divest from fossil fuels.
Right.
So pension funds who invest.
So it'll be one of these climate nutter
like a Dale
organisations,
Vince
right?
or Ian Getty or someone.
Yeah, bankrolled by huge amounts of multi-millionaires who love paying these people.
BDS? I thought it was like.
I thought.
Well,
50 Shades of Grey.
That's what I thought.
You thought that was a sofa shop?
Yeah. No, that's not me and Mike thinking.
Not sofa.
It's boycott, divestment and sanctions. I mean, we mostly know it in the context of Israel, but this is kind of similar, where they're saying, we need to stop investing in fossil fuel companies. If you are, divest now.
How about I invest in whatever the hell I want to invest in because it's my money and I'll do what I want with it.
Yeah.
So
thanks very much, but you can get stuff started.
We're supposed to be cold and miserable, not travel, and then when we're pensioners have no money either.
Right.
This sounds wonderful.
Yeah, great.
Really,
Don't go anywhere.
Richard Kersey started off with Bridget. Do you remember Bridget Jones' Diary? Great film.
Still great.
And now he's here.
No, he's
I mean,
sorry.
Love
he's also
Actually-
sorry, isn't he, for making fun of fat
Love
women?
Actually in the Middle wasn't that good. This is a real kind of downward trend. But
I hate
none
Love
of those
Actually.
films were made without oil.
Somebody-
Yes. Right?
Love
None of the
Actually.
films were made without oil. Olivia Colman isn't who she is as an actress without oil. You know,
yeah.
everything now,
What's the
modern,
carbon
prosperous,
footprint?
lovely
What's the
society
carbon footprint of showbiz?
is thanks
Yes.
to oil.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
I totally agree.
What about the makeup she's wearing? Is she wearing, non-oil-based makeup? I mean,
Well, those boots look plastic for a start.
Boots look plastic.
One she was actually wearing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just beggars belief. All right, Chawner, up to you.
Everyone's
to
like brought
lower
facts
the
and
tone
stuff.
of the.
I'm going to lower the tone. I haven't actually really got any facts on this.
That's good.
Apparently, so you can fill me in on
This
this.
is a fact-free zone.
Typical lefty.
I think facts get in the way.
They do.
Apparently, something's happened in the UAE, which is like Leftovere or somewhere, and they were doing an anti-oil thing. It was the COP26.
It's COP28.
Is it COP28?
It's COP28. Yeah, we've had two since 26.
Yeah. And they're working so
27
well.
was in the middle.
Yeah.
Right.
And next
What were
one's
the
29.
what were the big
And that was in
takeaways?
Cairo. Do you
Right.
remember the one? 26 was when that bloke Ashok, whatever his name was, burst
Oh,
into
yeah.
tears at the end because they managed to get some agreement that he didn't think they were going to get. Alok Sharma,
That's it.
right?
Oh,
Burst into tears.
Very
A
emotional.
government minister.
And they're all going
weeping.
so well. They're all going so well. They've had to have 28 of them.
It's like the
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious. Once you get over 10, stop it.
The
Like,
only
I
thing,
just
yeah,
think...
the only thing they managed to agree on at COP27 was to have COP28
Yeah.
in Dubai, which is, of course, the world centre of, climate-friendly people.
Well, that's why my plank of the week is the bloke that has decided to use that as an opportunity to get more oil and gas.
Isn't it worse than that? Sorry, isn't it the United Nations have nominated as president of COP28? So I'm treading all over here, but I think this is mine.
No, you do it, mate.
So I
You
try
know
to
more
do it.
about this
So
than
anyway,
me.
So United Nations that run COP28 have nominated as their president the president of an oil company from a country that is one of the richest oil and gas countries in the world.
Right.
And he has used the
In the
platform...
Middle East.
In the Middle East. He has
Yeah.
used the platform in the meetings with other COP people that are involved, other COP countries. He's used it to do oil and gas deals. It's brilliant. It's hilarious.
This is the best.
I mean,
COP
in
so
fairness-
far, then.
Yeah.
It's the best one
Well
so
done,
far.
Dave, can I just say? Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
This is
Great
good
nomination.
And the
news.
great thing about these COP climate summits is that everybody has to fly in
Yeah.
from
Yeah, they're
elsewhere,
jets.
all over the world. They all come in from America, from Australia. They'll be in all the.
But they all come with one person per jet.
Southeast
I think.
Asia, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you see the private jets. There's literally like hundreds
It's
of
like
them.
Davos, isn't it? Like 400 private jets.
And Dubai, one of the most expensive places in the world to do anything. So hot that they have to have air conditioning everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And they've also
I mean,
got
it's about as
skiers on, eh?
climate unfriendly as you can get.
And all the food flown in, fresh
Yeah.
every day. Great food there, but
Loads of meat.
it's all flown in.
Yeah, loads of meat.
Well, I think by the
great.
time you lose count of what COP you're on, it is a sign it's gone on a bit too long.
Yeah, I don't know where COP29 is going to be.
So what you're saying is, Dave, it's not hypocritical at all.
No, I think it's great.
It's great.
No, I think it's great too, because maybe this will be the end of COP. Maybe they'll go, maybe we should just give up. And,
Well,
let the planet
ironically,
burn.
Russ wants the end of COPs as well, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Well, yeah, but we know
both
why
of
he wants to be doing cops. He keeps getting arrested. Anyway, coming up, we're going to go to Ireland for some action. Sadiq Khan's made the list again, and somewhere near Blackpool as well. This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We are here, it's Friday night, and we have got some great planks already underway. We've got another 4 coming up in this section, and I'm going to kick off with mine, and I'm going to take a little trip over to Ireland, because things have been a bit, shall we say, hot over in Dublin over the last few days and weeks, because there's been a growing sense of anger about the migrant problem that they've got, because they're also, of course, still in the European Union. I mean, an awful lot of these plank references this week will be to what's happening in the Middle East. And you might remember that when they started releasing the hostages, there was one little girl, Emily Hand, whose father had originally thought that she wasn't going to have been alive. And she finally came back and she was reunited with him. And it was an incredible scene. But he put out this tweet when that happened. And he said, "This is a day of enormous joy and relief for Emily Hand and her family. An innocent child who was lost has now been found and returned, and we breathe a massive sigh of relief. Our prayers have been answered." And everybody went, "Sorry?" No, she was not lost. She was kidnapped by Hamas
Yeah,
and
she didn't
taken
wander
to a
off.
very dark place in Gaza, where she was held for 50 days.
Yeah.
And she's only now been allowed to go back to her family. Yeah. And subsequently, of course, it's turned out that she now only whispers when she speaks to people, because she was taught that if she made any noise, she might be killed. I mean, it's horrific. It is, again, horrific. But Varadkar, who seems to get nothing right.
No.
You know, this is a guy who, during the time when Brexit was happening, was trying to sort of, agitate constantly for a united Ireland, trying to make out that Britain was selling Northern Ireland down the river. You know, he's no friend of Britain's, as far as I can see. And we have our production team have managed to cook up an argument he had some time ago, just to give you a flavour of what he's like, with another Irish politician called Michael Healy-Rae.
I am elected here every bit as good as you are.
Thank you, Deputy.
And you know, maybe a lot better than you are. But the funny thing about it is, I wouldn't dare to look down my nose at you or anyone else, because I don't do that. But maybe you do, because you're a bit of a big shot. But like I say, off we do with the airy fairies and see how far it will get you. But you can be sure of one thing, it's not a nice thing to look her down her nose at me and say what you said to me a while ago.
Reflect on it and think about it. Just think about what you said, OK?
Yeah, it's all kicking off in the Irish Parliament. I'd watch that any day of the week as opposed to PMQs, wouldn't you? I mean, that's great, isn't it?
More hats in the Houses of Parliament.
I mean,
That's what I want.
The hat definitely makes it.
Yeah.
You get a feeling you'd sit down and be a little dog there, you know, and he's just brought from the pub.
Do you know, he's like a little Jiminy Cricket figure. He should follow Leo Varadkar
Albert
everywhere.
Steptoe, I think.
You know, I mean, it is brilliant though. But yeah, anyway, that's my serious contender. But it was getting a bit serious there, so I thought we'd give you all a laugh.
Varadkar was an absolute disgrace with that tweet. You know,
He was.
I lost a little boy, my own son, once at a zoo.
Yeah.
Found him again. That's losing and finding.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, your
Emily
keys.
Hand was illegally and
I mean, he
violently
tried to explain it away
kidnapped
as-
while her caboose was slaughtered.
Right.
That's not being lost.
No, and he tried to explain it away by saying it was a biblical reference. You know, I was once lost, but now I'm
please.
found. I don't think that's what he was doing.
But that's still not appropriate.
That's reaching very hard.
Right.
You use strong language with something like that. You don't have to downplay it. You don't have to have an equivalence. That is wrong, what happened to her.
Right.
I'm fairly sure that's a Spice Girls lyric as well. I was lost.
Could be.
And I'm fine.
Yeah, actually, I think you're right. I think
you're
you're right.
governing by
Very
Spice
well
Girls.
put.
Big time.
Laura, what's
Tell you
your
what I
second one?
Oh, sorry.
They seem to be talking amongst themselves. This is what happens when Chawner comes
Be
along.
quiet, think about it, and reflect on it.
Yeah.
As Leo Varadkar
I'll play with my
said.
crayons in the
Reflect
corner.
on it.
Yeah.
All right, I just need a peak cap to do that next time. So my second plank of the week is, wait for it,
Go on.
Sadiq Khan.
Brilliant.
And it's for his contribution.
He's only missed out about 3 weeks this year, I think.
Well,
In
he
3
just-
years.
This is the plank that keeps giving.
Yeah.
What can I say? This week, of course, he was in the Covid inquiry,
Yes.
and he was pretty much crying about how he wasn't involved in Cobra meetings.
God.
And if he had been, more lives would have been saved,
course they would.
apparently.
Yeah.
And his reason for that is, had he been involved, he would have said we should lock down earlier.
Right.
And literally, one of the best decisions the UK government made was not inviting Sadiq Khan to the Cobra meetings. And he's talked about being alarmed and feeling winded that he wasn't included. I mean, the man's a blithering idiot.
He really is.
Thank God he
But he's
wasn't
also
on the
one of
Cobra
these
meetings.
people, and there's many of them in politics, who he thinks he's some kind of genius. You know, and also he's the only one that doesn't know that he's a complete and utter wally. You know?
We talk about the ego has landed.
Oh, yeah. Let's have a look at his appearance before that Covid inquiry.
I can see no explanation at all why, the GLA, the Mayor of London, we weren't around that table. I think lives could have been saved if we were earlier.
Well, that's because he has a greatly inflated sense of himself.
Yes.
This is the problem. Now, a lot of the mayors, Burnham and Sadiq Khan, they're using this as a reason why they need more devolution for future pandemics.
And more money, by the
and
way.
more money, of course. Now, the thing is, to be fair, there is some good reasoning behind it, because, if you're a mayor, you'll have a better idea where your testing centre should be or your vaccination centre. But the idea that different towns or cities should be locking down in different ways, like when we had the tears, it's a nonsense. It was an airborne virus.
Right.
One of the best examples of why devolution doesn't work is the pandemic.
Right.
The fact you could be on the English border and do, go to shops.
Well, do you remember the Scots were
and leave
talking
your
about
house?
keeping the English out of Scotland at one point?
Exactly, and of course an
Been doing
airborne
that for a
virus
while,
doesn't work like
true.
that. You've got lorries going up and down.
Yeah.
You've got all kinds of service people going in
Trains.
and out. The whole thing was a nonsense.
I know. It is.
It was
But
an
he
argument
has,
against
the other thing that I
devolution.
really find annoying about Sadiq Khan is he has that thing, I don't know what it's called, whether it's called an affectation, where he can't say ing. Everything's ing, like Beth Rigby. You know, it's that kind of estuary English.
But you think he'd be a bit introspective on the basis that his ego is the size of a planet. That's evident.
Bigger than him, for sure.
But when you're bigger than him, everything's bigger than him. But when you look at his record, surely he must do sometimes. I mean, in a dark room on his own, he must think, actually, this isn't going very well.
No.
You know, housing, crime, what he's done on ULEZ in terms of putting people out of business.
But he's making a lot of money with that, though.
Well, he is, but in terms of his record of success on things, particularly crime. In fact, this week there was some numbers on crime on the tube.
On the tube, it's
which
gone up
have
massively.
gone like that, you know, as crime has generally, of course. You know, house building, transport, I think TfL's been bankrupt not once but twice under his tenure and so on. Surely he looks at himself and says, well, maybe because I'm such an abject failure, I wouldn't actually offer much around that table.
Right. Also, we have the Metropolitan Police on a regular basis. He technically is in charge of the Metropolitan Police, and he does seemingly nothing to get them acted in order.
Mate.
Oh, that was the best.
I forgot about that.
The thing is, he's using this, like so many are, just as an opportunity to pick holes in the Conservative government or to bash Boris. It shouldn't really be for that. It's supposed to be a COVID inquiry. The best thing to do would be just to shut it down now.
Yeah, shut it down.
It's cost enough money. It's taken too long.
100 million quid we'll save if we shut it tomorrow. You know.
We're paying for this.
Makes sense.
You know, we're paying for this. Every taxpayer, we're paying for this
It's a
useless
predetermined
inquiry,
outcome.
which is going to come up with the outcome that we should have locked down earlier.
Right.
Yeah, it's predetermined. It's absolutely a pointless endeavour, for sure.
Totally. Although it was quite good fun seeing Michael Gove calling that barrister Milady. Thought I was watching an episode of Thunderbirds. I think Parker to walk in. Your card, sir, is ready. Russell, up to you.
Yeah, so my next one, just when you thought the world couldn't get any more bonkers.
Yeah.
My nomination is a council, I think it's pronounced, ironically enough, failed. Failed council.
Is it?
F-Y-L-D-E.
I thought it was filed.
I actually rang them today.
Did you?
Because I knew I was coming on and I thought I should at least try and pronounce it correctly.
Failed,
and they
brilliant.
answer it as failed council.
Right, brilliant.
I thought,
That's really
plays right into my hand.
Can you narrow it down? There's a lot of failed
Which
councils.
particular thing? But this is a particularly failing council, in my opinion, on the basis that they have just served, after a 2-year investigation, some might call it harassment, a threat of antisocial behaviour, an antisocial behaviour order, on a 97-year-old woman by the name of Anne Seago.
Yes.
Her crime, feeding the birds in her garden.
I know.
I kid you not, feeding the
Isn't
birds.
that
in her garden.
song
but
from
what
Mary?
was she feeding them? Because
Isn't it-
if she
hang
was
on.
feeding them Semtex, I can see that would be antisocial.
Isn't it a song from Mary Poppins? Feeding the birds.
Yeah, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's offensive enough to warrant an antisocial behaviour.
No, I don't.
Can you believe it?
So the neighbours have complained, apparently, and she said, look, all I'm doing, I've got a bird table and I'm putting seed out, and yes, OK, a few birds turn up, that's what they do, because they actually need to eat. And the council take it upon themselves to actually serve her with a letter, which I think we can show.
Haven't they also driven past the house to
Several
check?
times. But this has taken 2
But I
years.
don't get it. What's the problem? Do the neighbours not like birds? Was it encouraging
they don't like
rats?
the influx of birds in the garden.
They don't
which
like
is
the
where they
birds.
live. It's where they live. It's what birds do.
Yeah.
But she did have a troublesome neighbour, though. This guy.
The
really
guy
had it
sounds
in
like a
for her.
pain in the backside.
Well, then serve the antisocial behaviour notice on the neighbour, not on the
Is the neighbour a
97-year-old
cat?
woman.
I get
and
it.
it's really annoying that you can't get over the wall. It's like really
No,
annoying
but you
about
think
that.
cats would love it.
No, but apparently...
No, 'cause they can't get over
but the
because that'd
guy,
be illegal,
apparently,
wouldn't it?
apparently one of the things that he does is he bashes bin lids to scare the birds away and then plays loud punk rock music, according to the Daily Mail.
Does he sound like an episode of
So
Top Cat?
he could be a big fan of the Jam. I don't know.
Exactly.
Or the Sex Pistols.
Anyway, I think it's ludicrous, ridiculous, and worthy.
It's
There
that
you go.
funny noise I hear in my ears.
Yeah, and
I know
worthy,
what it is.
worthy of a plank nomination.
It's not actually.
I think so.
It's not that the mad, the mental patients are in charge of the asylum. These are monsters. I think the people who
COVID's
would
done it, you know.
People who would, be in this kind of like
Also, it's her
bureaucratic
garden,
machine,
right?
And they're only birds, not crocodiles.
and do this to an old lady. It's so cruel.
Yeah.
But I think there's another thing going on. People are very divorced from nature now. Think about all the gardens that got astroturf in the back garden, and they're all paved at the front.
I don't think there's that many, are there?
Oh God, tons were
Really?
tons around my
They used to do it in
parts, Mike.
Scotland because
Yeah.
it was so wet, and so they'd let the kids go out and play in the garden. They wouldn't come in covered in mud.
But
so
I
they put
think-
astroturf.
Near where I live, loads of people put like old fridge freezers and like old sofas and stuff out, and I've never
For the
understood
birds?
why that is. It might be
To
for
make
the
them even more
birds.
comfortable.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because they're broken.
Laura, serious point. You're probably best qualified to answer this. Do we think that this is a direct consequence of the authoritarianism around COVID and lockdown?
Sorry, I'm asking the question.
Sorry.
In fact, I was going to ask you, why don't you tell us about this fine that you got from the court, since we're talking about fines?
Really?
But keep it short, though.
Well, yeah, OK, long
We've got
story.
time, I'm told.
Okay, so I was caught for having a ticket on a train that turned out to be the wrong one. It was the wrong one, but
that wasn't your fault.
Well, no, I purchased it on Trainline. There were no red flags. There was no, you must jump through several hoops and kind of walk around with your hands on your head in order to travel on this particular train. So I innocently got on the train that was from the correct departure point going to the correct destination. Because it was the wrong one, I was then confronted by the ticket inspector.
I find this astonishing.
Who then just didn't want to let it go. And I said, look, shall I just pay the upgrade or shall we just kind of let this go? Because I think the difference was £18. I said, but look, I don't think I've made a mistake, but if I have. So he said, no, it's a penalty, £100 penalty or whatever it was. And I said, well, I object to that because I think that's an overreach. He said, well, if you don't pay it, the police will be waiting for you at King's Cross. And I kind of said, as I do, go on then. OK, fair enough, we'll have the argument. So got to King's Cross, 4 police officers waiting for me. And
Lucky it wasn't 24.
Well, yeah, nearly, yeah. I guess, if I'd been Tommy Robinson, it would have been even more. But 45-minute debate ensues. They tried to get me to pay the penalty. I refused. And they said, right, you're going to have to go to court. So I went to court. And they struggled as much as they possibly could, Mike, to try and find something that they could convict me on. And actually, the magistrate at the end said, right, he said, there were 3 things that we could have, and I'm paraphrasing here, 3 things we could have had you for. First one, you're not guilty. The second one, you're not. He said, but the third thing is, when you went to exit after seeing the police, by then, you should have tumbled that you should have paid the penalty. And because you didn't, because you elected to go through the court system, we find you guilty of evading the fare with intent. £740.
What? You're joking.
£740 fine.
That's unbelievable.
Plus costs, another £700 in costs.
What costs?
And guess what? Here's the thing. The trial, I mean, obviously, I went to court in total 3 times.
Trained for that.
The trial lasted, I got there at 10 a.m, I left at 5:30. It was an all-day trial for an £18 discrepancy.
Oh, my gosh.
That is ridiculous.
Talk about a terrible use of police resources.
I can answer your question now and comment on that. I think things have changed since COVID, and it's because people have become a lot less forgiving, a lot less tolerant, a lot less kind to each other. They don't like mistakes, and it's because we were trained to see each other as the enemy.
Yeah.
We're
And
all
also,
locked
you
up.
can't
We
go
didn't have
against
the
the regulations.
society.
You know, regulations is
But
regulations.
there's no proportionality.
Yeah.
No proportionality.
No judgment.
You can be a burglar or a shoplifter and get away literally scot-free. Buy the wrong ticket and be 18 quid out and try and make amends.
Incredible.
No penalty.
Because you're easy to pursue.
I think we should make this judge the plank of the week right now. Never mind anything else. But coming up, we're going to be going north of the border. We're going to go out towards Greece as well. And then a bit closer to home, there's a royal book out. You know what kind of is. This is plank of the week. Well, we're a bit in shock after all that from Russell Quirk there. Extraordinary story. Anyway, we are back with Plank of the Week, and it's time for Candice Holdsworth, your second one. We go north of the border for this one.
This one really made me laugh.
Yeah.
So I saw a headline, the SNP drops plan to pardon witches.
About time, I say.
Did you feel relieved?
Yeah.
Well, yes, I mean, red hair. So anyway, I was like, I love this period of history. I think it's really important. But is it the biggest priority right now?
Right. It's Sunak-esque, this, isn't it?
It's amazing.
You know,
It's
where you're kind of
amazing.
going, right, what can I do which is completely ridiculous? Like when he launches this bloody plane powered by chip pan fat in the middle of the worst kind of, crisis that the country's ever seen in all sorts of different ways. So they were going to pardon the witches and now they're not.
Well, yeah, so initially it did have a bit of momentum. It was proposed by a backbench MP.
Right.
But no one's really got much interest.
So it's still bad to be a witch.
Yeah.
Are these olden days witches?
Maybe
Is it
Nicola
like a
Sturgeon
recent
objected.
witch
So it's the women who were all murdered basically in the 17th century.
Right.
So it's meant to be a stand against prejudice and misogyny 500 years later.
This is the thing, isn't it? Because feminism has taken some pretty odd turns lately, and apparently it's now feminist to defend witches because witches were wrongly prosecuted because, they used to do that thing, didn't they? Ducking them in water.
Sink or float.
And if you duck them in the water and they drown, they're not a witch, but unfortunately they're now dead, so it doesn't really matter. And if they float, they are witches, so you burn them at the stake.
Well, it's a
They
kind
smoke
of
quite a lot because they're soaking wet.
Well, it's a new politics, right? So everything in the past has to be completely, subject to moral scrutiny, and you have to stand against it. And it's like, well, I think everyone knew that was bad. I don't think many people think that.
Some of the witches might not have been very nice, though. I mean, there is that possibility. I mean, what about the 3 witches in Macbeth? They were in Scotland.
Yes, I'm sure that's exactly why they've dropped the plans. But I think it's probably that they've dropped the plans to pardon witches because they want to be able to do it again with TERFs, the trans exclusionary radical feminists.
Oh, yeah, they're the new witches.
Well, they're going to put them in a ducking stall.
They love the trans ideology up in the SNP.
Yes.
So they're probably just trying to leave the way open to burn some TERFs at the stake.
Well, yes, but so it is interesting. You can look at the witch hunts of the past and it can teach you a lot about how people behave, but they're not looking at it from that perspective.
I mean, funnily enough, that is actually the most relevant bit of the story, isn't it? That, there actually are witch hunts going on.
Yes.
And you are actually, being really, really prejudicial against people because of what you think they do.
It's a little fun game, though. Guess how many people lost their lives at the Salem witch trials?
At the Salem witch trials?
Yeah, the most famous witch hunting
in
one.
America.
Yeah, guess how many people died?
There wasn't that many in Salem. There was a lot more in Europe.
25.
Yeah.
Are you saying that's not very many?
It's not very many.
But
That's a lot of witches,
many
I wouldn't go in a room. I would not go in a room.
They've been drowned.
I wouldn't go in a room with 25 witches, would you?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
I bet there'd be big drinkers.
Yeah.
I think they'd put on a good spread.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to show you now. I'm going to show you a clip of Scotland's Chief Witch Finder General, Humza Useless. Have a look. And you know what clip you're going to see.
Oh, yes. Brilliant.
You see, what probably happened there is a witch probably cursed
it's probably cast a spell on that thing.
That's why he fell off.
I can never watch that enough times, I'm sorry.
But that sums up his entire political career.
Yeah,
doesn't it, really?
how's it going, Humza?
In 10 seconds.
But as it starts going worse and worse, do they just start becoming more involved, more interested in trivial things? They've kind of given up a bit.
I think that's what it is they get to the point where they realise they can't actually... I mean, you'd think that getting an 80-seat majority in 2019, the Tories in particular, they could have done all sorts of stuff, right? They could have done anything they wanted.
They just imploded.
But instead, they've actually done nothing.
Smoking bans.
And now they've started up this thing called the Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I still don't know what that's for. And now they've got a plane that flies on chip pan oil. I can't think of anything else.
All the big issues.
How are they going to ban smoking?
I think it's like that party game where you put loads of different concepts into a hat, just mix them up.
Right.
And we're going to get rid of oxygen.
The one policy about the smoking, right? The New Zealanders have now given up on it.
Yeah.
So the one country that they've copied because they thought it was a good idea, now they're not doing it.
No, it's great, isn't it?
Brilliant. Right, Dave, you have time for your second one.
So,
it's Rishi Sunak.
Yeah, Rishi.
I could have segued way into
Very good. Well, this is a thing that didn't need to be a hornet's nest, that didn't need to be kicked. It's the Elgin Marbles. Where did that come from?
I know.
All this? What's happening?
It suddenly came out, didn't it? Out of nowhere. And apparently Rishi got upset with the Greek Prime Minister because he wasn't meant to talk about it.
And to my understanding, everyone's like, "What? Are you all right, mate? Where's this come from?" Although it did lead to a very good joke in political sense from Keir Starmer that Rishi's lost his Elgin Marbles.
Yes.
He waited a long time. For Keir Starmer, that's a good joke.
He waited a long time for that.
Yeah. Maybe he set it up for that. It's a really long-form joke.
It turns out that these marbles were stolen, right? Depending on who you speak to. Lord Elgin apparently paid for them, didn't he?
But they were rescued, not stolen.
Yeah.
Who plays marbles, though?
Well, when you hear about the Elgin Marbles, you think of a bag of marbles, don't you?
Yeah.
But apparently they're in the British Museum. And they're on display.
They're made of marble, I guess.
They are made of marble, yeah.
What are they like? It's marble, but what are they in the shape of?
They're people.
Yeah, it's like
they're from the Parthenon. You're the one that's nominating it.
Yeah, I don't really know.
Do you not do any research, Dave?
I think we rescued them and we kept them safe. And
there's a
everybody
marble
around
of
the
a horse.
world
Look,
can come to the British Museum and see them.
So that's the horse's head.
But that's why we ended up with them in the first place.
That one's from The Godfather.
Because they were being almost
destroyed.
destroyed.
Joke for people that watch mafia films. Nobody laughed at that.
I'm so
I said the horse's head's from The Godfather. Never mind. You're too much busy speaking amongst yourself. Let's have a look at the Greek Prime Minister, whose name is Kyriakos Mitsotakis.
If I told you that you would cut the Mona Lisa in half, and you would have half of it at the Louvre and half of it at the British Museum, do you think your viewers would appreciate the beauty of the painting in such a way? Well, this is exactly what happened with the Parthenon.
I'm good with that.
No, it's really fine. Not. It's not the same analogy at all.
I'm fine with that because, nobody goes to Greece to look at the Elgin Marbles, do they?
No one goes to the British Museum.
People go to Greece to drink ouzo and get laid, basically, isn't it?
And you might look at the Acropolis.
I think the problem is
I've never been to Athens.
Cultural appropriation is such a hot topic now. That everybody wants things back. But, this wouldn't happen with Greece. But, sculptures were sent back to Benin and then sold.
Right.
One way of looking at it is the Elgin Marbles were rescued. They've been safe in the British Museum. Everybody around the world can come and visit them.
Right. Well, look at what
And where
ISIS
does
did.
it
ISIS
end?
destroyed loads of stuff, didn't
yes,
they? When they took
yes.
power in the Levant, or whatever they wanted to call it.
And that's why these
and
were
they suddenly
rescued.
blew all this stuff up, which was this amazingly ancient history of the planet,
And that's
which
why
we
these
now
were
don't have
rescued,
anymore.
because they were
and if
gonna
it
be
had been in
destroyed.
Euston, where the British Museum is, they wouldn't have. Well, they might have.
Yeah, but I don't get this argument that people are like, oh, we've got them in the UK, so you can visit them. They could just put them in a museum in Greece.
Yeah, but
Like, I don't see that argument doesn't really have any like.
Yeah,
but
because they're in Britain, and so people who live in Britain can go and see them because they were paid for by somebody who was British who bought them.
But Dave,
and put them
also
in a
these
museum.
slippery slopies, what do we do otherwise with every other piece of art in Britain? Every
Yeah.
painting that was painted in Spain, Italy, Florence and so on. Do we give it all back?
Every gem that was mined,
Yeah,
everything
give
that's
it all
been
back.
crafted, it can't
Yeah.
all go back to place of origin. Also,
Have you
when
got a foreign
Elgin
car? You
Marbles
have to give
were
that back
made-
as well.
Yeah, you'd have to
I haven't got a car.
Of course you haven't got a car.
it's very
He's a lefty.
nationalistic.
They don't have cars, do they?
No.
I also think like most
You'd have to
people
give all your German cars back.
What, back to Berlin? Back to Stuttgart?
Yeah, back to Stuttgart.
Definitely not doing that, Mike.
Yeah, that's no good.
No.
Well, like, I just think like most people go to the British Museum just to like shelter from the rain anyway.
When's
Like,
the last time
you know what I mean?
there? When was the last time you went there?
I actually went a couple of weeks ago.
Did you?
Yeah,
What
like
did you
what?
see?
Because I was sheltering from the
Really?
rain.
Yeah.
Genuinely. But a coffee was $4.70.
What do you have a coffee for in the British
It's
Museum?
free to get in, though, isn't it?
You're not supposed
It's free to get in, but then you go to a little cafe.
You can make a donation, I think.
Yeah, no one does
He obviously
that.
didn't.
Well, no, people do that. People do that. Lefties
Everybody
don't
makes
do
a
it.
donation when they go to the British. It's one of the best museums in
Yeah.
the world.
£5 in the
you
box.
go, you make
Also,
it,
what are you going to do about
Thank
the
you
Egyptian
for this
section?
amazing free museum.
You're going to send all the
with the
mummies
Elgin
back.
Marbles.
Yes.
The thing that I don't like about the British Museum is not enough games and stuff. Like you go into the Science Museum, you can play along and stuff. You can't really do that with like the mummified like remains.
What do you want to do with the mummies?
Play around with
you
them
want
for
to
a
get in
bit.
your sarcophagus with them?
What sort of games have you got in mind,
That's
Chawner?
it's a bit dark. This show's taking a bad turn.
Raising golf with the
Reverse
Elgin
out of that
Marbles.
cold.
Anyway, coming up, it's me again, and I'm going to talk about that bloke Scabies, or as he's otherwise known, Odious Scobie, as I like to call him. That's coming up next on Plank of the Week. Good evening, welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're into the final furlong, because this is the bit where I decide who's going to win, and there's, I tell you what, there's some great competition going on, and it's also when I give you my final nomination, and it can be nobody else, can it, this week, than Omid Scobie, who's got an awful lot of other names. He gets called terrible names by people. He's over in America at the moment, publicising his book, but the book that's now come out, which he's called Endgame, in which he's kind of predicting the end of the royal family, is such a ridiculous title and such a ridiculous notion. And he's such a ridiculous bloke. I mean, I said the other night on my show that his face looks like something you'd picked up in a sort of melted bucket at the Madame Tussauds waxworks, you know? I'm not sure that any of his face was actually born with him. You know, most of it seems to have been augmented. There he goes. He's lied about his age, right, to the Times. He's admitted lying about his age, because apparently he's nearly 40.
Who hasn't done that?
Well, I don't lie about my age, do you?
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
How old are you?
All the time. I'm 56.
Really?
I just
Good.
use Nivea, mate.
Yeah, well, very good. And it must be an excellent 50 years you've
I've done.
Amazing. Yeah, but, you know, he's admitted lying. Piers Morgan, who's mentioned in the book, as according to Owen Scobie, has regular telephone conversations with Queen Camilla, which Piers says is absolute rubbish. He's just made that up. So an awful lot of things in the book are made up. He's also said, I don't really talk to Harry and Meghan much anymore. This is not really as a result of me talking to them. It's from me talking to their friends. And everybody knows they haven't got any friends, so he can't be talking to them.
Isn't the whole book a regurgitation?
And it's
of
all a
everything that's been
regurgitation of
written
everything that's
before?
been said before, including some really ridiculous things like Prince Charles used to get his shoelaces ironed, and now King Charles has his shoelaces ironed. Nobody has their shoelaces
With
ironed.
all due respect, Mike, I think you also should then nominate yourself, because you are just giving publicity to this book.
Yeah, I don't mind giving publicity to it, because I'm not giving publicity to the book. Nobody who's listening to this show or watching it is going to go out and buy this book, because they all know that Omid Scobie is a complete plank at the
Sounds
very
like he
least.
uses the same publisher as Rachel Reeves. Just copy and paste everything.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what's even funnier is that in this last week, the book came out, and bizarrely, it was printed in Dutch. Now, I don't know why you would do that. I can't imagine that there's loads and loads of royal fans in Holland who want to, the Netherlands either.
Funny enough, Owen Jones doesn't believe in the Dutch because he's never been to Holland.
No,
so
he's never seen any evidence that there are Dutch people,
So
so therefore, you know, that doesn't happen. Let's have a look. Here's Omid Scobie talking in an interview some time ago.
I myself have also had moments as a biracial royal correspondent within the institution. I'll never forget the moment an aide or a senior aide close to the Queen said to me, "I never would have expected you to speak like that." And it's that level of ignorance, I think, that perhaps made it very difficult for Meghan.
Clearly that's because she thought he was a rag doll that couldn't speak.
He looks like a Ken doll. He does look like...
I never thought you could speak. I thought you were just like painted.
If you can't tell the truth about yourself, your own identity, you can't be trusted to tell the truth about anybody else.
And also this whole racial kind of argument has popped up again as a result, because what happened in the Netherlands was that apparently, and I can't explain, nobody can explain how this happened, but because of an error in translation, somehow a name was published which was supposed to identify the person in the royal family who made the supposedly racial comment about Meghan and Harry's baby, right? But Harry had already said that never really happened.
That never happened.
He'd already denied
how
it.
Translated from an English version that doesn't talk about
exactly, and it's not in any other version. So it's either a stunt by Scabies and his crowd, or there's something else going on, and nobody could quite figure it out because the book has now been pulped in Holland. I mean, I would suggest
which was going to happen anyway,
everywhere. And that would save us all an awful lot of trouble. But people are now saying that if it's true that Harry and Meghan are not giving this guy permission to write on their behalf, then they should now come out and say he's talking absolute cobblers. And we do not in any way endorse what he's doing, and he should desist immediately.
But is it a book that's sympathetic to Harry and Meghan?
Very apparently.
Very, but horrible about William and Kate. And pretty horrible about Charles and pretty horrible about Camilla. So
completely imbalanced.
Yeah, it's not in any way a proper piece of journalism.
I can't wait to see the numbers. I mean, they're going to be very low.
I mean, he'll sell it in America because they keep buying things there. I mean, they think The Crown is a documentary. I mean, these are not very smart people. No, especially the bit with Diana as a ghost. She never actually was. She never was a ghost. Right. Well, anyway, listen. Here we are. We've got to decide who is going to win. It can't be Sadiq Khan because he won last week. The SNP is quite good. It might have to be Scobie, because I don't really want to give it to Owen Jones. It's almost as like he is sort of the biggest plank, but I kind of don't want to recognise him.
Kudos.
I accept that. By giving that, but in my mind, you're absolutely right to nominate him.
He's the biggest plank, but he doesn't deserve it.
He doesn't, no.
Yeah.
I would have given it to Chawner for COP28, but he was so badly researched. He didn't even know his guy's name. You never know. There's a reason for that, because you don't read anything.
I can't read.
I'm not surprised. They're going to throw the I'm dyslexic one at me, Omid Scobie's going to get it, and I'm going to give it to him. Plank of the week, Omid Scobie. Get lost. In fact, while you're in America, just stay there. Don't bother coming back. Move into Montecito with your best mates, Harry and Meghan. Harry, that guy's at the door again. He wants to write another book. Thank you very much to Laura Dodsworth, Russell Quirk, Candice Holdsworth, Dave Chawner. Of course, we'll see you in another couple of years, I guess.
Yeah, big time.
And I'll be back with The World According to Mike Graham at 11:30. Coming up next, it's Friday Night with Nadine.
There's nothing I like better than cuddling up with somebody and watching That Was the Woke That Was, 10 o'clock on Saturday night. We've got Pete Barnes, Stephen Barrett, Derek Lord, Lois Perry.
Be there or be square.
You've just ruined this.
Look, I'm getting ready for my new primetime show on TalkTV and radio, 7 o'clock Saturday night, James Whale Unleash. I don't need you coming in here, following me around with a camera. I'm so sorry about this.
Saturdays at 7 on TalkTV.